Hello everybody, happy Monday. It's me, John, back with another episode of JohnnyVlogs. And before we talk about how important NamUs is, I have to thank new Patreon supporters. So first of all, big thank you to Matthew, really appreciate it. Bile Pit, you might want to get that looked at. No one should have to live with a bile pit. And I hope I'm saying that right. I guess it could be Belepit. Tabitha Batchelder, thank you so much for your support, as well as Angie G and Matt Cox swinging in with a big pledge. Thank you guys so much. As you know, it is largely from the funds that you guys donate that I make donations to the causes that I review on the show. So I really appreciate that you give me the ability to do that. So thank you. And speaking of one of those causes, this one is a cause that actually doesn't need a donation, NamUs, but they are very important and I would like to support them in any way I can. If you've seen some of my previous episodes, I have frequently featured their information. I've talked about it a little bit, why they were important before, but I have a couple of particular kind of case studies that I want to run by you guys to really demonstrate the strength of this centralized information. And I do believe that it is a key step in the evolution of police work that they keep centralizing their information, that they have some type of central repositories like this, not just for missing people or unidentified people, but also for potentially other types of crimes, which I don't believe that we're at yet. And in terms of how technology develops in other areas, it's my personal opinion that it's moving very slowly on this front. But there are several things about NamUs that are really cool. So let's just turn to the screen and go over it together real quick. Here's some kind of factoids that I pulled out on it. Nationwide, there are as many as 85,000 active missing person cases at any given time. As of June 1st, 2016, 26,767 total missing person cases have been reported to NamUs, of which 10,949 cases have been resolved, 1,335 with direct assistance from NamUs. That is pretty impressive when you look at those numbers, and to know that just centralizing that information and giving other law enforcement agencies a place where they could review that without having to contact other people, hope that they go through the process of digging up whatever information they want, getting it back over to them. I mean, even if you just talk about the time frame of being able to look at records like this, it's instantly available on NamUs. If you have the time to search the database, you have the time to learn the information. You're not waiting on another component of someone that works in another police department or some other department somewhere, hoping they do the file work and get the information back over to you. NamUs is comprised of 3 databases. A missing persons database contains information about missing persons that could be entered by anyone. That, I think, is probably one of the strongest things about NamUs. If you remember the review that I did for the Killing season, if you don't, you should really check it out. I really think that that's a good show. I hope that it's coming back. One of the big points that was raised in the Killing season, they found a guy that was just a programmer, but he started cataloging these murder cases, particularly involving prostitutes. And he wasn't confined to, a lot of police departments, it seems like they are very confined to the area that they're servicing. But some of these crimes, they might occur in that area, then the body could be moved out of that area. They might not occur in that area, but the person is from that area and then they go missing. There's all these weird conditions where if you have this focal point of your jurisdiction and that is the only thing that you're willing to consider, you might miss what's going on in the truth of trying to discover those cases because it's outside of that jurisdiction. So I do think it is a real strong point that NamUs data can be entered by anyone, and then it is vetted by people that work for NamUs where they go and confirm it. There was the video I just did last week on Jim Sullivan's case where NamUs is having trouble even reaching out to law enforcement and getting confirmation that that's even a real missing person. So it's cool that there's this whole other aspect. You can't just have people that are going to NamUs and entering bum records. There are people that are grooming the data to make it even better, and that is really strong. Point number 2, the second database that NamUs has is an unidentified persons database, which contains information entered by medical examiners and coroners. So that is specifically for John and Jane Does, and they enter kind of the basic stats of those people. But because this information is also publicly accessible, you have people that are just interested in helping in these cases that will sometimes review NamUs records from the missing person side and try to compare them to the John and Jane Doe section, the unidentified person's side, and try to link those up. And it does happen. There are cases where people actually do link those up, and I do believe it's because of this kind of crowdsourcing mentality that is also behind NamUs, with that information being publicly accessible, with people that care enough to donate their time. Some big things can happen. The third database is an unclaimed persons database, which contains information about deceased persons who have been identified by name, but for whom no next of kin or family member has been identified or located to claim the body for burial or other disposition. And I think even considering that they have a service like that is just, it shows you the nature of why this system was designed and the type of people that are working behind it. When a new missing persons or unidentified decedent case is entered into NamUs, the system automatically performs cross-matching comparisons between the databases, searching for matches or similarities between cases. So outside of home web sleuths, outside of that community doing their comparisons, you literally have automated systems that are running this data, comparing it against each other, and that's another way that matches can come out. So that's just kind of the bones behind NamUs, the basics of what makes it work and why I think it's so awesome. And by the way, I have to give a quick mention here to Christy Groves, who I kind of consider her my NamUs expert. She's really interacting with them a lot. She's developing some good relationships over there, and just know that we will continue to try to work together. If we do find that we're covering cases and people aren't in NamUs, we will continue to try to work on that and get them into NamUs so that hopefully the benefits of being in that system might touch that case. As a matter of fact, in a little bit of a positive nudge that happened from the last episode that Searchlight came out, I did hear from the cousin that was looking for Gary Joseph Youngblood, and apparently law enforcement did go back into that NamUs profile. I have a very strong suspicion they saw the video. I kind of heard that from the cousin. But they did go back into the NamUs profile and they updated it significantly. There is much more data there. The fingerprint information is now referred to as being there. Contact information, the case number is all there. So I am very thankful that, if nothing else, it seems that just raising some exposure to that case, just getting some eyes on that case, helped strengthen the NamUs profile, which can be obviously a valuable tool in solving some of this stuff. So let's go through just really quick a case that Christy actually sent over to me, and this is kind of what prompted this vlog for me, why I wanted to talk about it. This is actually from the Charlie Project blog, and if you're a longtime Lord and Arts fan or a Brain Scratch Searchlight person, you know that I frequently come to the Charlie Project, review their information. I like how concise they are. I like how detailed they are about getting the important statistics, you know, the person's age, weight, height, eye color, hair color, last known clothing, and then a good synopsis of the details that doesn't go too lengthy. I mean, it is really a well-written, solid synopsis on the details. So they have a blog as well, and they have an entry that was made just on March 13th of 2017 about Linda Marie Pagano. She was a 17-year-old. She had been missing from Akron, Ohio since September 1st of 1974, but I think she wasn't added to NamUs till last year. Her body was found in Strongsville, Ohio, less than an hour from Akron in February of 1975, only a few months after she disappeared, but no one made the connection until now. An online sleuth discovered this forgotten case while researching cemeteries for graves of John and Jane Doe's. Web Sleuths member ICE 190. So once again, just in this story, we have all the pieces working in a kind of amazing way. We have a concerned citizen that has access to public information that is groomed very well. It's verified. They try to update it as well as they can, and then they're able to use that information to help solve a case that is, this happened in 1975. This is over 40 years ago. So really, really awesome. And just one more I wanted to tell you about. I like calling these stories the power of NamUs. From the Arizona Daily Sun at their website, azdailysun.com. Brian Nez, a 19-year-old Native American man from Flagstaff, was last seen by his family July 11th, 1994. Meanwhile, the Arizona Department of Public Safety was trying unsuccessfully to identify a pedestrian who had been struck and killed by a vehicle in Navajo County in August of 1994. Quote, they took pictures and walked Winslow and put out some information attempting to identify him in Navajo County. That's what we did in those years, said Coconino County cold case volunteer Jana White. They had no luck. The deceased, a Native American male, became a John Doe. No one made the connection between the two cases. The Sheriff's Office investigators entered Nez into the national computer database used by law enforcement, and his case went cold for decades. I'm just going to stop there for a second. I did a little bit of research into software specifically for law enforcement. I don't know where it's at currently, but I can tell you with all the different packages I saw, all the different products I saw for law enforcement software, I'm pretty sure a lot of that data remains in its own little silo. That you have this law enforcement software being used by this one jurisdiction, the next jurisdiction over, they might be using a completely different type of software. So for the data to get connected between those two things, I don't think that would happen unless there was some type of oversight from, I really feel like it's going to have to be done at a national level, but there needs to be some type of rule that comes down about, hey, if you're using this type of software, there has to be a connector so that that data can be shared with the other types of software. And at that point, perhaps at least law enforcement within law enforcement will be able to tap into records from a different department in a completely different jurisdiction and maybe look for conditions that match the case that they're looking at. As far as I know right now, I don't think that type of connectivity is quite there, and this kind of speaks to it. They entered this case into a system and it literally sat and went cold from there. White said, we didn't have something where we had integrated information and you could take one piece of information and match it up to another piece of information. We were still handwriting a lot of things or typing them on a typewriter in those years. White eventually joined the Coconino County Sheriff's Cold Case Unit in 2015 to review unsolved missing persons cases. She reopened Nez's case this past March. White entered Nez into an online database called the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. It was developed largely over the past 10 years to improve information sharing on missing and unidentified persons between law enforcement agencies nationwide. The database showed that the description of the unidentified pedestrian killed in Navajo County in August of 1994 was similar to Coconino County's description of Nez. Nez had been fingerprinted at age 7 as part of a nationwide Operation Child ID program. His mother had given the fingerprint card to the sheriff's detective who worked the original case when her son went missing. The DPS Public Safety Crime Lab compared Nez's fingerprint card to the prints from the accident victim. They were a match. So once again, NamUs gave them the bones of the information they needed. This case looks like it matches this one. They were then able to get this fingerprint card, compare it, and solve this case. I believe they solved this case 22 years after it happened, and only within a year of this case being entered into NamUs. So just to tell you guys why I harp on it so much, why I think it is so critically important. And if anyone that works at NamUs sees this, I think you guys are amazing. I think what you do is probably one of the strongest tools that we have for missing persons cases, especially once they start to go cold. And for, even as grim as it sounds, and for specifically the ability to match up unidentified people with the missing persons cases. Because you have to kind of assume every John or Jane Doe out there, maybe not every single one, but the majority of them are likely also a missing persons case. If they had a family and that family's missing them, they probably filed a missing persons report on them. So it's really cool to know that there is a group of people and a system that is being handled so well. It's built on strong fundamentals and just by people that really care. You can just tell by how this thing is put together that there's people that care that are making this whole thing work. So I really dig it. I wanted to tell you guys why. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Johnny Vlogs. Thank you so much for spending some time with me, and I hope this is a kickoff to a great week for all of you out there. Take care, and I'll see you on the next show back here on the Lord and Arts channel.